Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic. This is a pre-recorded episode. I'm your host on the left, Al,
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
and this is the show where we dissect fiction for its mythological meaning. And in this episode, we are continuing to talk about Dragon Ball. And in this particular episode, it's called Enter Ninja Murasaki. But before we continue, we do have an addendum. It's in the first set of clips, so I think we'll just talk about it when we pull that up.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we hope you enjoy the show. So the first thing we really see here is kind of a reiteration of what happened last time. Actually, hey, there we go. I started with it. Him looking at Goku and seeing it's a look alien, and what else? You read the whole thing, I think, right, Brock?
Yeah, it doesn't really say anything other than can't figure out a way to defeat this alien. Seeking, it says something like registry seeking further assistance cannot defeat or something like that, and then like pops up above his head. It just says look alien.
Well, I like that it says that he is having trouble defeating it because at the level of hierarchy in which Metallic resides, he's not even able to perceive Goku. He hasn't met a force like Goku. So as, let's say, shocking as the meeting is for Goku, it's just as shocking for Major Metallic.
Right, and I like that it's shown sort of this. It's like a heads-up display on his sunglasses, right? Like his blindness makes it so that he doesn't understand what Goku is, right? Goku being this, like, well, he is an alien, right? We don't know that in the canon of Dragon Ball yet, but canonically Goku's an alien,
But
right?
his spirit is alien to
Mhm.
Metallic, which is the point I think that's significant.
Well, in the same sense, he's alien, and his spirit is alien to human nature, right? To our fallen nature, you could say.
Okay.
And so yeah, he it's funny that he's deduced as alien immediately in the story.
Well,
It's not really like
aliens. Oh my
look
God.
aliens.
Why?
I don't know why it says that.
That's funny.
But yeah, I just like
I
that.
wonder if
it
that's
gets,
only this. That's must be only in the English, right?
Yeah, I guess. It's
Okay.
just strange.
Interesting to know. Okay. Well, and to also say this is a reiteration of what happened last episode. We see the spirit that Major Metallic represents,
Mm-hmm.
which is that one of strength but ideological possession, right?
Yeah.
He is a puppet of someone else's goals, let's say. Also, I think it was fair to mention that it is a rocket and not a mouth beam, and I think that's to say that it's not substantiated in the spiritual, but purely a mechanical process by which the maliciousness flows from his mouth.
Right. That's a good way of putting it. I also want to addendum there. We had talked a bit about the snow and it being the sort of malleable consciousness in a sense, right? That it's rigid, it can hold its shape, it can be packed into something that you can control. And that really ties into what Goku's coming up against with the Red Ribbon Army, and specifically here in Metallatron. And he is programmed. His consciousness has been programmed and sculpted to act in this way, right?
Right, and I just wanted to mention that, and I think the last thing we can say here is did we talk about what it was for him to run out of batteries?
I think we did, yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess then that's
Ran
it.
out of steam, sort of, yeah.
Well, yeah, his spirit. You can only, let's say, be a tyrant to yourself for so long before.
Yeah, you can only deny your
run out.
nature for so long before you're not sustained anymore. And an android doesn't eat, right?
Yeah, they aren't sustained in the same way. So, we then see Goku. He goes up to the next floor. He is then accosted, but before that, we do see General White and Ninja Murasaki, who we've known in the past couple of episodes, but Goku has never met yet.
Right.
We
This
also-
is his entrance.
Yes, and we also get to see a little bit of his kind of build up. General White gives him a little hype promo.
Yeah, he starts the episode out talking about, it's like a commercial for him, saying, "Oh, if you've ever come across him, you don't live to tell the tale. Everyone's tried to take him out. No one has ever survived. It's like this whole sort of, it's almost like an 80s action movie sort of thing for him. And I think that's kind of fitting for how attached to his persona Murasaki really is.
Yeah, and it is to say that there is power in that deception, and it can be wielded as Murasaki wields it. But we'll see how that measures
Yeah.
up, right? The one other thing I want to mention on this is that Sano prays for Goku. She says, "God, please protect Goku."
Right.
Just to mention it. I think it's significant that she is hoping that the most, let's say, divine and perfect conceptualization is what should be protecting Goku on his journey.
Yeah, she's hoping that that what she has perceived in Goku is close to godlike, that it's good enough that it'll overcome something like this, and that she's right about the goodness in the world.
And
right?
this is quite dangerous. This is quite dangerous because Murasaki is a creature of pure arrogance and deceit. He kind of almost completes the unholy trinity, except he doesn't really have too much of that resentment.
Yeah, he doesn't really arc into resentment.
Yeah. And so, but we do see this is a more distilled version of deceit than we've ever seen in this show so far.
Yeah. The way it's portrayed, I think, is really fitting, especially since we've seen different iterations of it already, like with him being a ninja, you know?
And so Goku enters this the next floor, and it's totally dark. He can't see anything. And so he walks around, tries to look around, and he's attacked by Murasaki from the shadows. So what should we say about that Murasaki would thus attack without being seen? Because a lot of this episode has to do with sight.
Well, okay, so I want to point out the line there that was just on screen where he comes and he says, "There's an outside on the inside."
Oh, I do like that, yeah.
And that's calling out that this is a face on the inside. It's almost like he's walking into his psyche, right? He's walking into his home, and we see that he's got a home here. And so there's an exterior to this interior he's entered, meaning he has fooled himself as to his status. He believes the lie he's selling about how cool he is. So on the inside, he believes that he is the legendary, deadly assassin Murasaki, even though we see
the messenger of death.
Yeah, he's the arbiter of death. But we see through his actions that he's very foolish. And so that projection of his persona into his interpretation of himself is the first thing we see, right? And it's dark.
It's also
dark here, right?
I love how this is introduced because later in this arc, later in this, I guess, saga, we're going to see the fruition of what a non-foolish would be. A non-foolish spirit, such as Murasaki's, would be. It's pretty good, but we'll get there. So Goku walks around, and he eventually sees that it's an outside on the inside, and he also calls out for Murasaki to show himself, which prompts the lights to come on. Now, my interpretation of that naturally is calling forth the forthrightness of the spirit reveals the deceit within, let's say. Because I don't think Murasaki decides to turn on the lights, right?
No, he's saying show yourself, right?
Yes.
Not show yourself. He's saying show yourself because he's entered his self.
Mm-hmm.
All of these conflicts that we see with Goku and these adversaries, it's spirits, right? And so Goku's calling to him to reveal his true self, and his true self here is that outside on the inside. So he's like, what's going on here? Why is this the way that it is? Show yourself to me because you need to confront what I am to maintain your status in this hierarchy.
Okay.
And so he has to. He has to respect that.
Yes. And so the lights come up.
Mm-hmm.
And Goku can then see what this place is. And it's a forest. There's a little pool. There's the house, like you were saying. All that stuff. And so let's do this real quick.
Well, the first thing that Murasaki shows is his speed, right? whenever he does finally decide to show himself, he starts whizzing around Goku over and over and over, and saying, "Oh, you can't keep up with me," and he's just basically jumping at
Well,
random,
wait,
almost.
before that doesn't I thought he tried to kill him before that.
Oh, he does come up behind him with a sword and try to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
assassinate him. That's true.
But then he immediately
Hmm.
disappears, right? Sure.
So he attacks from the shadows anyway, even though the lights are on now, and then he tries to hide himself in his speed after that, right?
Yes.
What do you think it means that that's what he goes for immediately is his speed?
I don't actually think it's so much his speed as much as it is like I think the visual representation of the blur is perfect because it's an amorphous form. The
Hmm.
deceit adopted allows for no real substance to be there, right? It's all amorphous. The goalpost can move anywhere at
Right.
once, right?
So that's what I was going to say as well. Is it reminds me of getting into an argument with somebody who's ideologically possessed, right? And it's like they won't stay still for a second. They're constantly shifting their position,
Right.
constantly,
Yes.
constantly,
Yes.
constantly. And Goku's so forthright, he's just taking it in. And of course, Goku, being someone who's very good at recognizing patterns, picks out the pattern of his deceit and clocks him with a rock.
Yes, and clocking with that rock knocks him out of the tree and also knocks this picture out of his pocket, which I think this picture is quite significant. It's funny, but
It
it's
is very
also
funny.
significant. That's
Mhm.
the thing. That's the brilliance about Dragon Ball. So the picture is of two girls getting dressed, looks like taken from an inappropriate angle, let's say.
Mhm.
And it's revealed as in Murasaki stands up out of the bushes and says, "Give me that picture back." It's revealed himself. Show yourself, right?
It's revealed his vulnerability, right?
Yes, and that's exactly what is pointed out. Well, and it's not just his vulnerability. It's also there's something personal about that kind of what not debauchery. I'm trying to there's a word for it, but we can say vulnerability for now.
Hedonism, right?
Moral weakness is
Yeah.
more of what I was trying to get at.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So this pointing out of the moral weakness immediately happens as Goku interacts for the first time with Murasaki, right?
Well, this hitting someone, the way that this goes down, it mirrors the way the episode ends as well. The way their interactions begin echo throughout this fight, and so here we see this dishonest positioning that he's showing, and then Goku forthrightly defeats him at it. Right? He catches his pattern and manages to hit him with the rock that he threw. Right? Meaning like his aim was true, so he understood him. And this is a struggle as we get through this episode, as they kind of pantomime play over and over and over. It's sort of this understanding that we see. So I just wanted to point that out because this comes back around as well. As for the picture, it's kind of funny. They play it as a gag uh, where he calls out over the intercom. He's like, "Oh, that's what you call showing my sisters a good time," or something like that, right? Or
Yeah, it's with a
how does he
okay.
say it? It's so goofy.
General White cuts it really. It's a weird voice for him. I don't think it's the actual voice actor that says it.
It's such a strange line.
And in the sub, he just says like "what, huh" or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is that moral weakness revealed by the interaction with the heroic spirit that causes the revealing of the deceitful spirit.
Yeah, it's like it shows him for how he really is immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and so instead,
emblematic.
and this is why I like Murasaki a lot, because instead of confronting that, he takes it and puts it in his coat and hides it away, right?
Yeah. He takes it back
Immediately.
into himself, right?
Yes, exactly. He does the exact thing that someone who is possessed by their own lies would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he decides to enact play with Goku and has him count like they're playing hide and seek. And he says, "You'll never be able to find me this time. This is my incredible disappearing technique."
It's really funny how much the running away and the hiding plays out throughout this episode. It's almost this. It's like, oh, it's not a fair fight. Like, let me establish rules for the game so I can prove to you that I'm such a good hider that you can't see me, right? That I'm above your vision. And so he has to establish these arbitrary rules so that he can go and try to prove to him to demoralize him on
Well,
his sight,
that
right?
he can even compete at the level Goku's at. That's the other thing. Goku, the reason Murasaki is so, let's say, built up in the beginning is because compared to uninitiated people, his mastery of the domain of deceit is deadly. It can be deadly.
Sure.
And so encountering Goku has really put him in his place, let's say. And I think that's another reason why, right, that he's trying to be able to compete on Goku's level by enacting these rules of play.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but it shows the, let's say, spiritual acting out of what we were talking about just a second ago with that foolish spirit that Murasaki embodies.
Yeah, and it's great too the game that he plays with him here because it's almost like saying, "Hey, give me a certain amount of time to work logically through what my spirit would do and then represent myself again so that you don't recognize my spirit, right?" And so what he does is he says, "Give me the 30 seconds." So he gives him the 30 seconds and what does he do? He hides himself behind a flag.
Yes. And it's on accident, but it wasn't written on accident. It was written for a
No.
reason, right?
You didn't notice it, but your brain did.
But your brain did, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that flag, right, gives him away. Goku points him out, and what does he say at that point? I think he says he used the wrong side.
Yeah, he
He
flips it
back
around.
over, and it's actually a tree, but it's still not a very good hiding place.
His feet are still sticking out.
Yeah, his feet are
such
still
a
sticking
goofy
out.
thing.
It's just it is.
It's a goofy thing, but it is to say, leave this spirit alone to its own devices, and it will manifest itself behind things like the flag, and it will hide behind justifications of group identity like that, right? And
Yeah.
Goku sees it immediately. He calls it out, and he's just like, "You look silly."
Mm-hmm. And so he uses a smoke bomb to get away, I think, at that point.
He blinds him again, right?
Yep, blinds him again, says, all right, I need more time, so let me re-present,
Yeah.
right? And so Goku goes to look for him. And he finds the hut, and he still can't find him. He goes in the hut. There's food. In fact, I'm surprised Goku doesn't have some, but obviously he's not going to take what's not his.
Yeah, I think
Puts
the
it back.
implication here with the food being on the pot is it's kind of saying this is where he lives, and Goku has just kind of like stumbled into here, and he immediately has abandoned everything he was doing to defend himself or defend his mode of being, right? So we're finding him in a vulnerable state.
And we see him in a vulnerable state here, or at least a subordinate state. He's underwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really too apparent that he's discovered because of the frog. I don't think. I think Goku's pretty much spotted him out before that anyways.
Mm-hmm.
There's a single bamboo shoot sticking up out of the water, but there's a little bit of that that shaking that I was talking about. So Goku looks all around for him, and he actually discovers the porn stash. He thinks he's under there because of the hollow rock we saw earlier, right?
Yep.
He uses the same idea, and he looks under there, and it's actually great that he has his moral weakness hidden underneath his floor.
Yeah, he's stashed it under the floorboards.
He walks upon his throne of lies, let's say.
Yeah, he's hiding it from himself that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Because it's not really there to hide it from other people as much as he's hiding it in shame for himself, and he's dissociated that shame in the same way that he stuck the picture back in his pocket.
Right. And
with
just
this being a
pretend it
microcosm
doesn't
of his
exist.
home,
Exactly.
right? Or his self.
And so we see he's underwater. Goku comes over, pours some hot tea into that bamboo shoot that he's breathing through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this hiding place, I want to say it's that reflective nature of water that he is trying to hide behind at this point. And so Goku has to use water, right? and show that reflection back at him and show him that that reflection that he has is actually something that will also reveal him, right? So he uses the water to try and reflect his persona on Goku, right? The famous bamboo technique or whatever he calls it underwater, right?
Right.
And what Goku does instead is uses water to reflect on him that which reveals his true nature.
Yeah, it's kind of this funny like thing for Goku to do where it's almost like he walks up, he looks down, he sees that there's air going in and out underneath the water. He's like, "Well, I'm going to just put this water back with the water." It's
Yeah,
as simple as that.
there we go.
And it reveals that he's not of the water, right? He doesn't belong there. And so then he comes back up out of the water where he belongs.
Yeah, this is the infamous snorkel technique.
The infamous
right?
snorkel technique, yeah.
It's another one of those projections of that persona ego, right? That Goku can see right through. And I love how it plays out so many times, you know? It's all these different situations of Goku pointing out these flaws in his spirit.
I think that analysis is actually really good because while he's down there, he's also saying, "I'm one with the fish."
Yes.
And immediately the frog jumps on his face. It's like,
Yes.
no, you don't belong here. Like, you're an ego construct. You're a persona. You don't belong here down in the unconscious.
Exactly. And trying to use the unconscious is only going to backfire, as Goku shows. So then he comes out of the water and they decide to race.
Well, he decides that he's going to show his aggression now. No more hiding from Goku. And then he runs away.
No more hiding. It's just running now.
He really reveals himself to be nothing but evasion.
Yes. And it's to not confront that which challenges you is clearly a bad thing here.
He's acting in bad faith, right?
Yes.
He's being confronted with a spirit that can challenge his prowess, and his main goal is to subvert that any chance he gets to.
And so he throws out these spikes, right? You can think of that as a derailment, right?
Mm-hmm.
A disengagement even. And he laughs at him, and then he goes, "Oh, I see. I'm going to take aggressive action." That's what you're saying, yeah. And so he throws these spikes. Goku gets spiked by stepping on them, and he says, "Hold on a second." And he goes and gets the sandals from the outhouse and starts running with those since they're resistant to the spikes.
Well, one thing that Murasaki says here too is he accuses Goku of running stupidly and calling him an amateur. He says that's what happens when you run stupidly and you're not very good at it. And that is what he's been doing this entire episode, is he keeps on appealing to his own authority for the ego and for the persona he's created for himself. He's like, "How dare you anger a ninja?" And he just keeps on talking down
and he's
from
insolent.
that.
Yeah,
He's talking down from that position that he's projected to himself to believe that he's earned.
Well, he's a creature of complete deceit.
Yeah.
He's nothing but deceit. So obviously he deceives himself as well.
It doesn't manifest as much in the English translation. There's a lot of jokes in the place of these specific insults. And maybe they thought it wouldn't read as well in English, but it's the spirit of what he's getting
reads.
at much better.
It definitely reads. So he even says enough of this disappearing technique, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to try and hide his mode of being anymore. Instead, he's going to try and wiggle out of the situation as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And he runs. They have their race. Goku obviously smashes him, and he gets tired, and they have the end of the race. Goku's much faster than Murasaki, which is to say that let's say the hierarchical level that Goku's operating at can not only surpass the, let's say, insubstantial ground that on which Murasaki stands, but it can also exceed and cut that spirit off before it can manifest itself. And that's kind of something the hero can do to deceptive spirits.
Yeah, that's it's a safeguarding measure of the heroic spirit, right? To to identify this mode of being, to prevent it from being manifest, right? To prevent it from, it's the restorative nature of the hero on society, is to keep this from manifesting repeatedly, right?
Yes, because in one individual it's not as bad, but if a whole society becomes like this, right?
Hmm. And that's the
And
thing. That's why they showed him hiding behind the flag, right? Because
right,
it will do
yes.
that.
Yes. And so Goku cuts him off and he wins the race. And so the next thing we see is uh General White orders Murasaki to kill Goku. Enough of this fooling around. No more of these games. Don't instantiate your spirit multiple times, because the more times it happens for Murasaki, the easier it is for Goku to see through him. This time, because even still, I think Goku does get hit earlier with it. He does fall for the deception one time, but that's it. And the more that deceptive spirit is known, the more that can be brought out from the fog, the easier that
Hmm.
spirit is to vanquish.
Yeah, I think that White is recognizing that it's diminishing returns for Murasaki to keep on trying to flaunt his prowess to intimidate Goku, right? That he's only revealing himself to be a moron, as he calls him, I think, in the English.
Yes, exactly.
Um, and so he gets his sword and he tries to strike Goku, and Goku easily blocks his strike with the power pole.
And he even mentions, like, what are you going to do with your stick? Right? Murasaki says that.
Yeah.
And Goku says, well, nothing's been able to beat my power pole yet. Right? And the sword being a symbol and manifestation of malevolence and let's say pointed will, is not going to be able to stand up. In fact, it will embarrass a spirit like that compared to the ancestral spirit.
Well, yeah, if you don't respect it, it will make a joke out of you, right?
Right, and that's exactly what happens here, because Murasaki, being a creature of ego and deceit, is not able to subordinate himself to the ancestral, and therefore is not only subordinate to it here, obviously, but made a complete fool out of.
Well, Goku says, "You're just like me now. You've got a tail," right? And it's a multi-layered joke there
Oh,
because
definitely.
of what Goku's tail represents for him, right? That tie into his primordial sort of like ancestral nature.
If only Murasaki had a tail, right?
And so he gives him a tail.
Yep.
And he's like, "Here's some wisdom for you."
But it's just a joke.
It's just a joke, though. That's the humor that ties it all together.
So Murasaki lands on the power pole, and he does get a tail, and he's made a fool of, like we said. Then the last thing that happens is, is this is whenever Goku falls for? Sorry, I got
Well,
ahead of myself.
they spar a little bit,
Yeah,
and Goku snaps his sword.
his famous Sanat. I couldn't read it. His famous sword.
The one that killed all the people, that makes him look cool. He got rid of the named sword, right? He's upset that he's broken the legendary sword that he carries around. Obviously the power pole can break that sword because it's just a flimsy piece of metal compared to the power of what Goku wields.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's a flimsy piece of metal. It's just like a paper mache ego,
Yeah.
right? It's nothing
It's
compared to
brittle.
yeah, definitely. But
Um
I don't even want to say it's metal, because I wouldn't say that the spirit Murasaki exudes is metal.
it's a paper dragon.
Yeah, definitely.
So Murasaki says, "All right, fine, then I guess we're going to have a hand-to-hand fight." And as he says it, he's holding a blade behind his back, of course. And Goku, being Goku, says,
Sounds good.
"Sounds good. I'll agree to the terms." Right? And so Murasaki immediately jumps up in the air and throws this curved blade.
Boomerang?
It's like a boomerang because
Metal
we as
boomerang.
the audience know it's coming back at him. Goku doesn't realize it, and I love how this turns out because I think it's symbolic of why Goku can get beaten at all by the spirit in this sense, right?
Well, it's his own choice, let's say, but go ahead.
Well, Goku he in the English he has a line where he says, "You lied. You're not a very good person." But in the Japanese, he agrees with Murasaki whenever Murasaki says that his concern over breaking the rules is foolish because it's life and death. And Goku says, well, if you put it that way, I guess it does make sense. And then the blade comes back and hits him in the back of the head and knocks him unconscious.
And
And it
it's
lines up perfectly.
in the sub. And
Yeah.
particularly because that line, right, reveals a mode of being that Goku could adopt that would be susceptible to deceit.
Right. It's that moral relativism that can trip up your sense of what's right and what's true, right? And he tells him, "Oh, well fairness doesn't actually matter in the circumstances that you're fighting me." Like,
And Goku, for a minute, agrees.
and he manages to get through to Goku and catches him off guard. And that is the sort of the inverse of what we saw at the beginning of the episode, where Goku's able to identify his mode of being and hit him with the rock. But more
Yes.
straightforward, he doesn't have to trick him. He just hits him outright and knocks
Right.
him from his vantage point, right?
And it takes, trickery and deceit for Murasaki to be able to get Goku like this, right?
Mhm.
He has to kind of reason with him with something that somewhat makes sense.
Well, it also
Purely logical, let's say.
I'm glad you put it that way, because that cements a bit of analysis that I had for the way that Murasaki's acting as well, where he's coming at Goku from this position of authority and he's trying to outsmart Goku with his speed. I think his speed also is symbolic of how smart he thinks he is and how smart he's trying to be. And he can, in some ways, outsmart Goku, right? Goku can't make it all the way to count to 30, and he has to be coached by him to tell him, like, aren't you, he kind of insults him a little bit. He's like, what do you mean you can't even count to 30? Like, how are you even going to compete with me? And so he's talking down to Goku about not being smart, and he finally manages to outsmart him here, right?
Yes. He finally does, both because of Goku's actions and his own persistence. And it is to say too that deceit, given enough time, right? Deceit can get anyone.
Mhm.
It's tough to know who and what to trust and who has integrity and who's not integrated.
Well, also embedding yourself in deceit all around you, and that's where Goku is right now, right? There's these hollow rocks, and there's loose floorboards with porn in it, and there's
Yes.
hollow trees.
Yes.
Like, he's surrounded by deception, and even the hero can be susceptible eventually to being caught off guard by just deception on all sides, right?
Exactly. And so I think that's where we leave it, is Goku getting knocked unconscious.
Well, we do get a preview in the
Oh.
next for our android friend that we're meeting.
Ooh. Next 4, eh?
Or do we not have it?
I'll check.
So yeah, I just think that the way that the episode sandwiches together there with the fight it kind of reminds me of the fights that we were getting in the World Tournament Saga, where we kind of we step into a fight, we don't really know the terms of it or how it's going to shake out. We get an establishing sort of situation with the way that the fighter acts, and then after we sort of go through the motions of making their spirits sort of interact on different terms, then they come back together, and that initial challenge is either overcome or it overcomes the hero. It does, but it has that sandwiched, nice little bow tied up on it, right?
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons why the tournament formats were so successful. And we kind of had a couple of these mini tournament arcs in this, to begin it at Muscle Tower and kind of to end it at Baba's whenever we get to the end of this story arc, which I really consider like this to Baba's really at the end. But I think you are mistaken, my friend, because we don't see the android until the next episode. We haven't even seen the 5 Murasaki.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
You're
because
getting
this
a little
is
ahead
one
of
long
yourself.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the end of this.
This is the midpoint of the whole fight.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's kind of wraps us up here. I think this is an excellent episode to introduce the deceptive spirit of the purple representative of the Red Ribbon Army and how Goku compares to him. Much like Metallotron, there are a few things that are catching Goku up, but mostly Goku can overwhelm these spirits with his forthrightness, his vision, and the, let's say, inherent flaws in the spirits adopted by those who are following the Red Ribbon Army.
Yeah, and I want to point out, just on a more general note, how much he looks like Shu, right? Like, this is just a grown up
Yes,
human
this is
Shu,
grown up human Shu. Sure, yeah, yeah.
and how he embodies sort of that. Well, that same ninja spirit. But he looks very similar.
Oh, yeah. I take your point. Any other notes you had to say?
Nope.
All right. Well, if you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe to this channel. We do go live. Well, I guess we do release videos, let's say, every Sunday, and usually one bonus episode in the week. Sometimes Tuesday, most of the time Tuesday, but sometimes other days. So, I am your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
And we will see everyone next time. Have a good evening.